What is going on, guys? Jack here, and welcome back to episode number 40 of Park to Prem here with Nottingham Forest. Today we've got an end of season episode as well as a kind of mini Q&A of sorts. I've got a handful of questions that I'm going to go through today. Some of them might take a little while to answer, and these were taken from the comments of yesterday's video, which if you haven't seen was 100% live, last 3 games of the season, it was Premier League conclusion, it went down to the wire. And, well, I'm now going to assume that if you're still hearing me, you have seen that, because it wasn't very good, was it? It was not very good, but I think the one important factor to mention about this season is, whilst 5th place, given where we were, is undoubtedly a disappointment, going into the season, the media prediction was 8th, and whilst the board expectation I did up in January to Champions League football was not met, actually, 5th place, and for it to be as close as it was, it's still actually a pretty good season for us. I feel like it's easy to lose sight of that because of kind of our past league positions. I mean, if we look at it, we had a cushion for a long time, and I think in the end, a little bit of the fixture congestion of an extended Champions League run came into play. But throughout the whole season, we were on the cusp of the Champions League spots. Of course, we were as high as 2nd with about 10 games left of the year. It would be fair to say that injuries caught up with us, fatigue caught up with us, I think a bit of complacency as well. But at the same time, you know what, 5th place, it's not a bad little finish. And for everyone who was worried, Jack, are you going to get sacked? I'm going to be honest, everyone, I have played a little bit of the summer transfer window since yesterday. I can confirm I've not been sacked, so that's quite a nice little bonus. Additionally, just before we get into this actual episode, worth mentioning that tonight over on Twitch, that is where we live stream, at 9 PM GMT, 9 hours after this video has been uploaded, I'm going to be giving a little sneak peek as to some of my transfer dealings. So if you'd like to see a preview for the upcoming season live over there, make sure to go check it out. There's a link down below in the video description. Anyway, I've started on the manager profile here, mainly to conceal the fact that obviously we may have bottled things in the league, but actually someone did ask about me showing my manager profile. I'm now trying to find who it was. Who was it? It was Joseph Banks said, can we see your manager profile? Of course we can, Joseph. Here it is. Obviously, we've got some interesting characteristics. I don't attend press conferences. I'll hold my hand up and admit it. Apparently, I'm not very loyal to players either. I mean, I will point at players who have forced moves and say that they're not very loyal to me either. Obviously, you can see the career stats down in this bottom right corner. 562 games played, 329 won, 107 draws, 126 games lost, a 58% win percentage. I think that's pretty good. If we just look at our attributes, they've come a long way, haven't they? I mean, compared to where we started, where I think the majority of them were 1s, there has actually been quite a bit of an improvement over the years, which is rather nice to see. I feel like this might have improved a little bit more since I last checked it. I'm not sure, really. Obviously, we've got a Continental Pro licence, which is the highest qualification level, so I don't know if our coaching attributes are going to continue to improve much more, but obviously on the mental side of things, there's a couple of 20s, everyone. I'm in the territory of Messi. Not really. But yeah, you can see the manager profile here. Obviously, we have no relationships. It's a very lonely life I live, but Danny Cowley, former Lincoln manager, he doesn't like me for some reason. I imagine I attended one press conference and talked smack about him. Anyway, shall we talk about the end of season stuff? And I'm hoping, if I'm not mistaken, with 1 or 2 more continues, we're going to get to the end of season award ceremony, which, as I said, I'm hoping is going to happen. Football Manager, please make it happen for me. But yeah, over the course of this episode, we're going to go through the end of season awards. I'm hoping that here we go. Here they are. We're going to go through this, and then I'm going to go through some of your questions, as well as just take a little bit of a look at our squad and kind of the hopes and plans for the future. So anyway, in terms of transfers for this year, we had a couple of big ones that unfortunately were not absent. Well, I was about to say they were not absent. No, they were absent. They were not here when we needed them the most. And of course, the players that I'm looking at when I say that are Van Dijk and additionally Gonzalez. 2 players who didn't really have a happy start to things at the club. Obviously, Van Dijk, 55 million spent, a 6.88 average rating. Isn't that great? I will hold my hands up and say I played him out of position a lot, and I kind of experimented with him a lot. I do think his average rating suffered for that. I think actually when you look at it and say every other game he got a goal or an assist, that actually doesn't sound that bad by comparison. Obviously, he wasn't really playing as an out-and-out striker either. But the average rating, a little bit disappointing. But at 25 years old, I feel like he's a player with his best years ahead of him. A little bit of time to adapt may be needed. Obviously, Paulo Silva joined the club from Benfica for £48 million, a 6.97 rating for him. Pretty good, but still a little bit behind Piotr, which I suppose is a little cause for concern. What I would say is he's 23 years old and he is still improving a little bit. So I'm cautiously optimistic that Paulo Silva could be a good player. I'm not sure why it thinks his best position is right back when he's a centre-back. So answers on a postcard about that, please. But of course, we did spend other big money at the club this year, especially off the back of the sale of Regina. Players like Gonzalez came in for £53 million. Obviously, Gonzalez didn't do very well, and I think it's very easy to identify that. What I would say is we played him out of position a fair bit, and, well, after joining the club, he suffered from 3 separate injuries, and he missed the best part of 2 months after joining in January, which obviously is not really ideal when you're trying to, I suppose, get up to speed with joining a new team and learning a new system. Elsewhere, though, Sampaio joined us as the Regina replacement. And you know what? I think he did a really good job this year. At 20 years old, it was a difficult job for him to come in for a third of the price that we'd spent. We'd received for Regina. And actually, a 7.01 average rating, he did okay. He did okay, everyone. It wasn't a terrible performance by any means. Also, I think I've just realised that in the Football Manager update, they've made it so when you click on a player on this screen and then go back, it goes back to this screen instead of the start of the presentation. Oh my, that might be the biggest game-changing update of this patch. I now want to see it if it works on other screens. Anyway, looking at our season as a whole, of course, this was a season to remember. The board confidence for the Premier League performance is still a B-. Obviously, they're a bit disappointed we didn't make the Champions League, but actually, this is still a really good achievement. And obviously, when you look at it in isolation, as I said, I did bottle it. The players bottled it. I didn't. It wasn't my fault. But ultimately, I feel like it was a season where 5th place is still a really good finish. Of course, we wanted to get Champions League football, having got it last year. But I do feel like if you look at it as kind of things on the whole, the bigger picture, it's still a pretty successful season in the grand scheme of things, considering it's our 3rd year in the league. I'm hoping, with some nice additions, we've got a little bit of money in the bank, we can continue to climb a wee bit. Of course, Champions League, first campaign in this competition, board expectation, first knockout round. We made it to the quarter-final, we lost to Real Madrid. They're a very, very good team of Real Madrid. I don't know how far they made it in the competition. I now want to check. Okay, they're in the final against Barcelona. Suddenly I don't feel quite as bad, I suppose, about how much we struggled then against them. I mean, we had that sending off, didn't we? We could have beaten them. We could have beaten them without the red card. I'm convinced of it, but obviously we just didn't really turn up at the right time. I think if I was actually to identify disappointment in terms of our performances this year, it would be the fact that in the FA Cup and the Carabao Cup, the 2 competitions we won last year, we did fall a little short. We got knocked out to Watford in the FA Cup. That's a little, I guess, unusual. In the Carabao Cup, to lose to Chelsea, there's not much shame in that. Chelsea have done the treble this year. They won the Carabao Cup. They won the Premier League. I think they might have also won the FA Cup. So, you know what? Fair play to them. Also, I'm not sure why it says final position winner here. That is not what happened. That is not, I can confirm we didn't win it. And of course, we finished runner-up to Chelsea in the Community Shield as well. So, I don't know. It's weird, right? Because last year we had such a great year. Champions League football, 2 trophies won. It was always going to be pretty difficult to match that, I feel like. Anyway, looking at the season recap, obviously that win against Milan, 6-0. Remember that? That was a high point in the season. That was our biggest win. Match to remember was a 2-1 win away from home against Atletico Madrid. And goal of the season was Erk against Norwich. I mean, of course it was. Of course, in terms of the finances, things are pretty different to how they were at the start of the year because of the huge sales that we had. On the whole, though, money was increased, I think, kind of. I mean, actually, it looks like it probably works out around the same. We just didn't get quite as much broadcast revenue. I guess that's the issue with not getting to many cup finals over the course of this year. Anyway, this is our overall best 11. You can see here we rotate the team a fair bit. I'm a bit confused as to why Cameron Ferguson's in the team. I think that these statistics are his statistics from his loan spell at Aston Villa. So quite why that means he's gone into the first team, I don't really know. But you can see here, AMLO both averaging above a 7.0. Ricketts had a pretty good year. Piotr, already mentioned obviously that Silva got just below a 7.0. Piotr was top draw this year. Calafiori solid too. Regina, to be fair, only got a 6.97 everyone. And obviously, Toby was in goal for us with a 7.05. I know there were a few players who got asked about, can we get an update on them? Regina was one of those. So just to look at his spell at PSG, of course, signed for them for £190 million. He's got an average rating of 7.25. No goals, no assists, no player of the matches. Doesn't actually look like he's played that much football for them. And he's not had an injury. He bruised his ankle a little bit. Maybe they only played 8 games after January. Maybe he was rotated to play in the big competitions. But yeah, it's not crazy, is it? Obviously, the weird thing with the Champions League here is that this is also showing his performances for us. So we can't actually use that to kind of deduce anything. Also, in the Coupe de France, he got a 6.7. I mean, would you spend 190 million on him? I guess that's the real question, isn't it? My answer would be, I probably wouldn't, to be fair. Anyway, if we look at the accolades, you can see here, we were Manager of the Month for October. That feels like a lifetime ago. Fans Player of the Season was Piotr. Young Player of the Season was Piotr. That feels really weird to say, because Piotr's been here for like 5 years now. But I forget, he's still 22, everyone. He's still a child, although I do feel like he is captain going into next year. Is that sorry, Damani. I know Damani is our current captain. 13 leadership, dropping out the first team, complaining all the time about lack of first team football, although he has forgiven me recently. He's decided actually he's happy being a backup. But I do feel like Piotr is the natural successor. The fans love him. 16 leadership, insane mentals. He's been a top performer for a number of years now. I mean, look at those average ratings. He's only getting better, everyone. He really is something special and, a player that I think we can build around at the back. Of course, 2 records broken. Record for transfer fee received and then transfer fee spent. Maybe overspent on Sampaio a little bit, but he is only 20 years old and ultimately I needed a right back. And we had the money to spend. It wasn't like we were spending money that we didn't have to bring him in. You can see here, we set a record for record low number of draws this year. Did we really only draw 2 games? Did we? I mean, that's mad in itself, isn't it? 2 draws, 13 losses. If only we could have drawn 2 or 3 more games over the course of the year, it would have been a very, very different story. Obviously, I think the biggest issue for us this year was just the fact that we were quite unsettled, and that's, partially down to me. I think there's one perspective where the players were being rotated a lot. There's another perspective where I was tinkering with systems and trying to get something that I felt like was working, trying to string together some consistent results, and it didn't ever really feel like it happened. You can see here the overall best 11. Erk has been inducted into it. I feel like, despite his disappointment in the end of season running, he is undeniably our star man. I am a teeny tiny bit concerned. There's lots of teams interested, including PSG. I don't want to sit here and tell you he's not for sale at any price because, I've already said that once and I've proven I'm not a man of my word, but it would take a mammoth offer, I think. Erk's got 4 years left on his current deal, plus an optional 3-year extension. So he's essentially on a 7-year contract. I have absolutely no reason to sell him. So, come in with a mammoth offer, maybe I'll consider it, but it doesn't really feel like something we need to be doing. Similarly to Regina, another player who I know a lot of people asked about was Wilson Samake. Wilson, what are you up to? I can tell you what he's up to. He's chilling in China, everyone. He's actually not got a particularly good goal-scoring record or assists, really. But his average ratings are really high, which is super unusual. For leagues that aren't loaded by the game, it kind of uses a slightly different match engine, or at least it used to. And I think that explains why the average ratings are really high whilst he's not got that many goal contributions. I feel like you wouldn't see statistics like this in leagues that you have loaded that run the kind of the full fat match engine where it kind of fully simulates stuff. But nevertheless, in his little world he's living in, over in Asia, Wilson Samake's having a lovely time. He's partying it up, although I think any hopes of him being called up for the French national team have probably gone at this point. Anyway, you can see here the end of season review. It's weird, right? It'd be really easy for me to be hypercritical of this season. I'm still pretty happy with where we ended up. I'm still pretty happy with 5th. Maybe that sounds really defeatist. You can see here the expectation for next season is just a Premier League top half finish. And I think that's kind of testament to where we're at. I think I got a little bit ambitious in January. And given the fact that their expectation is only a top half finish for next year, which I'm not going to touch, I'm going to work on the assumption that, well, they're quite happy with the job that we've done. You can see it was an E- or an E. Now it's suddenly a C. They're satisfied. But obviously, we've had success here. We've built a legacy. Be patient with me, board. I think we're going to be okay. Anyway, we can see here, looking at the team report for the season. Apparently, this is our best 11. Who is Grice? Why is... This cannot be our best 11. This is not our best 11. This is just not... It's not correct, everyone. I'm not sure how you can have Grice in the best 11. The fact that I've come out and said, who is he, is probably testament to the fact I've got too many players in the under-23s. I mean, Amelia, have you provided this scout report as my personal assistant? Are you in cahoots with Grice? The only explanation I can give, if my assistant is giving me this advice, maybe it explains where everything is going wrong this year. Anyway, the players can go away for a break. I want them to go away and think about what they're going to do. I'm going to talk a little bit about the squad performance, and then we're going to talk all about all about the questions that you guys asked. Of course, I've got them on my second screen. I can see them, but yeah, I just want to talk about the team for a second. So this year, we weren't good enough at the end when it mattered, and obviously it's easy to point at the injuries to Van Dijk, and obviously Erk being very, very tired, the fatigue kicking in, Gonzalez wasn't available. Ultimately, I feel like we need a little bit of quality in a few different areas. I actually look at the back five, and maybe I'm crazy here, I'm quite happy with the back five. I feel like Toby's been very consistent in goal. He's been a good little goalkeeper. I will say that in the under-23s, there is a player who I'm very, very keen to get into the first team next year, and it is Hamada, who is a Syrian international goalkeeper. He's been on loan a few times over the last couple of years. When you compare him to Toby, there's a reason to argue that he could probably start a game or two next year and be given an extended run, the 19-year-old. He looks really, really good. And of course, the fact he's got a unique nationality, instantly, that elevates how cool he is in Football Manager terms. On the Football Manager coolness scale, he goes right up there. Another goalkeeper who I've got who could well be competing, but I think is just slightly in the shadows, I suppose, of the likes of Toby, is Mentese. He's been on loan in the Championship this year. He's kept 12 clean sheets in 44 games. It's not the craziest of records, but compared to Hamada, he's just not quite good enough, I don't think. I feel like there's certain areas where he is a little bit better, stuff like his kicking, his one-on-ones, but on the whole, obviously the aerial reach that Hamada has is great, the communication, the speed, it's all just kind of slightly edged in his favour, the stuff that really matters for a goalkeeper. But besides the goalkeeping position, I feel like the back four is fine. Sampaio did fine this year. Paulo Silva didn't hit the ground running quite as much as I would like, but he's a player who loves big games. I feel like his overall style of centre-backness, that's terrible phrasing, his overall style of centre-backness is quite complementary actually to Piotr. Piotr's got a little bit more of a physical aspect to his game, better jumping reach, although his heading isn't anywhere near as good. Whereas Paulo Silva is kind of probably a slightly better quality defender on the whole, but just lacks that consistency. And of course, at left-back, you might notice here, Navio, I am penciling in to be my left-back for next year. He's really, really good as Navio. He's actually improved a lot. And for all the red cards, I feel like it's kind of worth the risk. Maybe I'm crazy. You can see here his development over the course of the last 3 seasons has been pretty good, and of course he's got the bonus of the fact he's going to be becoming homegrown at club, which is very important for us. It's very, very useful. It's going to happen this summer. We have actually got a fair few players who are going to be homegrown as of this year. The likes of Erk, Dr. Medj and Marcelo. Lind also only a year or two away from it. What I would say is there are a couple of players in this list. I'm looking at you, Marcelo and Dr. Medj, who I might be looking to move on this year, because obviously for the last few years I've been signing a lot of younger players for the future. Obviously our first team is not exactly a small first team, we're 27 players, but then you look at the under-23s as well, where it's not a small under-23s. We've got 66, I didn't realise it was that many, 66, I've got a problem, I'm hoarding everyone. Basically this summer I intend to sell on players who I think just aren't quite good enough for the first team. Players who, when I look at their value, I think you've got potential, but I'm not sure if you're going to make it. I think actually players like Urquiza can maybe be worth a shot in the first team this year. I might try and loan him out again. He's had a pretty good spell at Augsburg and has continued to improve. Elsewhere, Vlad Pojana, Obviously, we signed him in January and loaned him back to Craiova. This guy looks really, really good. And whilst I don't need more attackers, I am sat thinking, if I train him to play out on the left, he could either be the backup for Erk, or if Erk one day, heaven forbid, does try and force a move, Vlad kind of makes sense to be the replacement, if you ask me. But there's a few players like those two, and then there's other players who I just think you're never quite going to be good enough. A player like Everlander here, who is a Peruvian international, has been on loan at Stuttgart this year, played 17 games. You can see before that had a loan spell at Rennes. He's not really shone anywhere. He's not improved a great deal since we signed him either. At 21 years old, his current value is 15.5 million. There's a few players like that I might look to move on. Similarly, Bedoya, he's not a very happy bunny. He's in the last year of his contract going into this new year on loan at Espanyol. Again, he's not really set the world alight. We signed him for 1.7 million. Given that he's got some really, really good potential, I just don't feel like he's ever going to fulfill it with us. And I feel like I've got better attacking options right now. If I could get 20 to 30 million for him because he's only 19, I think we'd be in a really good spot. There are a few other players, though, who I'd like to promote up. Players like Declan McCall here, I do see as a logical replacement to Damani Grimes. I don't want to disrespect Damani here, but Damani Grimes, obviously, he was the big key player when we first joined the club. He's just not that anymore. You can see here, McCall is 19 years old, Northern Irish nationality, so, wouldn't count as a foreign player in the league registration. And he looks really, really good. He's had a loan spell at Hibs this year, who have had a massive, massive season for them, where, if I'm not mistaken, they actually won the Scottish Premiership, despite the fact that Celtic had won it every previous year. In fact, you can see it here. They finished champion, Celtic in second. And obviously, he's played a hell of a lot of first-team football for them. So he's proven his worth. He got a 7.07 in a title-winning team. He's the kind of player who I'd be very, very keen to bring in next year. Similarly, as you go through this list, there are players here who have really good potential, who I think have a chance to fulfill it. There are some here that, are just, I don't want to say they're lacking, but I don't think they're ever going to make it. And I think we can definitely shift a few of them on, make some nice money, and hopefully reinvest that into the squad. I think the big thing for me going into this new season is we're not going to have Champions League money this year, but I want to continue to spend like a Champions League club. Players' wage demands have just naturally been going up. Our wage spend has ballooned. That is as a result of reaching the Champions League. Obviously, we're attracting higher reputation players on the regular, and that is kind of something I want to continue on with. Even though we've had a setback on the pitch, which might limit the overall quality of the players we're going to be able to bring in, I don't think it needs to be a reason that we can't spend money. I think we can generate the funds that we need, albeit without, obviously, the Champions League money that is really, really nice to have. Anyway, looking at the midfield, I think the biggest issue with our midfield is that I've not really sorted out who's going to play where. Obviously, we've got players like Ricketts, we've got players like Smith, we've got players like Lind. I really, really like Lind. He's continuing to improve. He's got insane vision, insane passing. Training him to play a deeper midfielder role, which I think could work better for us. Maybe we go back to the 4-3-3, which was successful when we first entered the Premier League. I think the big thing on my shopping list, and the big thing that we were lacking in our midfield throughout this year, is just a little bit of grit. Someone who's going to put in some tackles. Someone who's going to throw themselves around. I think the closest player we have to that is Hernandez here. And to be frank, whilst obviously 14 marking, 13 tackling, 17 positioning is fantastic, he just doesn't have that aggression. He's not an enforcer. I would like to get in a really hungry, ball-winning midfielder or two, so that alongside our really technically gifted players, players like David Lind, players like Owen Ricketts, who ended the season really well, there's kind of another side to the coin. I feel like we have lots of very similar midfielders. I would like someone who can really wrestle the ball back from teams and, I don't know, give us just a bit more grit, I suppose. That's kind of, for lack of a better word, kind of how I feel about it. Obviously, in the attacking department, we've got some really talented strikers. Gonzalez and Amlo, I feel like, are naturally our top two players. Obviously, we've got Tassos here, who I think is just absolutely top quality. I want to start trying to get him into the first team a little bit more, although I expect that to be tough. Obviously, Van Dijk can play striker, but I do look a little bit beyond these players. I look at players like Marcelo, who has potential, but I don't think he's ever going to be good enough for our first team. I'll look at players, and I'm sorry, Steve Secker fans, I look at players like Steve Secker, who we signed on a free transfer a few years ago now, didn't really do it this year at all. 0 goals in 18 games. He started 6 of those games as well. So it's not like we didn't give him opportunities. But players like that, they've just not quite performed. And I think they're another area where we can free up a few funds. Obviously, I've already mentioned the fact that we've got some really good young prospects as well in the attacking department coming through. Poyana, I mean, he's better than a lot of the players we've already got, if we're being honest. So I'm quite excited to get him in at 19 years old. He looks like he's got a bright future. Elsewhere, obviously, if I'm going to bring in those defensive midfielder players, I am going to need to move some midfielders on. As squad, as I said, 27 players. It's not the smallest squad in the world. I think one player who could certainly end up making way would be Dr. Medj. If I got an offer similar to the one we received in January of 50 million, I think I would probably end up taking it. For as good as he is, he's inconsistent. He's not improved a great deal at all over the last year. If we just look 12 months, he's actually declined a little bit as a player. I'm pretty certain that he's reached his potential, which obviously that's not a bad thing if he was really, really good. And he's not terrible. I just feel like we've got other younger players who are yet to fulfill their potential. And if someone's got to make way, it does somewhat make sense for him to be the man that does make way. Obviously, the squad on the whole relied very heavily on AMLO this year. That is something I would like to steer away from. I guess a nice silver lining is the fact that the assists came from all around the pitch. But yeah, an over-reliance on AMLO was certainly an issue. I feel like getting in a right attacking mid who can score on a similar level to Urk would be quite nice. Obviously, to be fair, Adrian Smith had a pretty good year for us at centre mid. But I don't really see him as a player who I want to be relying on for goals as an inside forward out on the right with his 11 finishing. I want to be less dependent on what we've got. One option I have considered is maybe to go to the 4-3-3, but then actually kind of play something a bit like this, where we play asymmetric, maybe play Gonzalez as an advanced forward and then AMLO as a complete forward on attack. I do quite like offset strikers like this, and I think Gonzalez is just a top quality advanced forward who, if we can get firing, is going to be absolutely insane. But at the same time, AMLO has really proven his worth. And as a complete forward, he's either-footed, really good physicality. I think he could be a pretty nice player in those wider areas. Additionally, great teamwork, great work rate, great stamina. Whilst his aggression and concentration aren't the best, there is a world in which we could end up playing AMLO as a pressing forward. It does just feel like a shame to neglect his dribbling and his technique a little bit, because he is a really technically gifted player. But anyway, that's kind of where my headspace is at with the current squad. I'd love to know your thoughts on it. And shall we have a look at some of your other questions? So, another question asked by Joseph Banks. He asked about our manager profile, which we've already shown. I haven't actually talked about Lincoln or Boston this year, so let's have a quick peek. In terms of the Championship, Lincoln City sit down in 20th. They were, at one point, pretty safe in mid-table, if I'm not mistaken. I think they've had a pretty bad year in terms of past positions, if we just look. Yeah, they were up in 12th when I checked halfway through the year, but they have really tailed off, which is a little bit of a concern because obviously first year they were in the Championship, they finished 16th, then 14th, 15th, 16th. They're on a steady decline. On their current trajectory, they will be relegated next year, which is not what we want to hear. Also, they're currently without a manager, which is a little bit interesting. If we just look at League One, I'm afraid to say Boston United, they lost in the playoffs. They've ended up finishing 6th. Obviously, they were relegated to League One. Their actual expectation for the year was 5th in terms of media prediction. So they've underperformed a little bit. I'm just curious, and I wouldn't normally use this, but there is a finance panel on this skin. What kind of money have they got? See, they've still got 3 million in the bank, so they have got a little bit of cash. I assume they've been selling on some players and stuff. If we just look at their team history here, actually, it doesn't look like they've really sold anyone. I mean, you look at the Sam York sale, and it still stands out a little bit above all the other transfers. I guess, speaking of which, good transfer here. Good transition, Jack. Expertly planned. Sam York, where is he? What is he doing? Well, of course, he was signed by Hamburg. We talked about that previously. He's had a number of loan spells. He's gone on loan to Augsburg this year, and he's actually joining them permanently, which would be fantastic if it wasn't for the fact that I'm pretty sure Augsburg have been relegated. Yeah, they have. It's not great. Obviously, we had a Quizzer on loan with them this year. He was their standout player, so they're going to be losing him. You can see Sam York has been playing as a striker, where he's been underperforming his XG massively. and his average rating isn't all that impressive. Anyway, I've talked about Regina, I've talked about Samake, I've talked about Quansah. One other player, no, I've not talked about Quansah, I've talked about Sam York. I've ruined my own segue here. Quansah. I know people are going to want to know where Quansah is. I feel like he is like one of the more important, significant figures of the save game. He's just vibing out in League One, everyone. He's not doing very well in League One. He's stealing a living. Did Newport County get relegated? They did. I feel like his average rating was a little bit of a giveaway there. But yeah, Quansah, I feel like he's got worse since we last saw him. Also, will he ever end up playing for the Ghanaian national team? That would be a plot twist. I don't know. At 28 years old, he looks like a pretty good player. Obviously, he's still got his iconic jumping reach, but no one has made use of it like we did back in the day. Look at that. He's got 4 goals in his last 6 seasons, whereas for us, I'm going to do quick math, 16. He got 27 goals in 6 seasons with us. He's got 2 in the last 5. Oh, Quansah, they've ruined you. I'm sorry, mate. Right, next question. What else have we got here? Naringa has asked, can we see who's won the Ballon d'Or the last few years? Of course we can. I don't know why I'm replying like this person has just asked it live. It just feels like I need to be polite, you know. Right, if we look at the Ballon d'Or, Mbappe has won it actually in 2030. That's pretty impressive that Mbappe's still winning it. Actually, looking at things here, you can see Messi won it first year, then it was Salah at Liverpool. Haaland at United finished 3rd. Mbappe finished 2nd. Dybala then won it at Man City. Mbappe has won it kind of sporadically. Leroy Sané with a couple of them, which is a little bit interesting. He is actually still playing for Bayern Munich, aged 35, although he's about to retire, and his legs have gone a little bit. I think that's probably the technical terminology there. Interesting to note, the only regen who has won it so far is Simplicio. Or Simplicio? Probably Simplicio. I can't read everyone. 26 years old. He's pretty good, isn't he? Yeah, I can see why he's won the Ballon d'Or. The Barcelona number 7. Of course, it's a Barcelona v Real Madrid Champions League final this year. How does he compare with Erk? I'm just trying to work out where Erk fits into the world of football. Erk, where are you? There he is. I mean, he's not a world away. He's not a world away, everyone, but there is definitely a golfing class. Come on, Erk. Keep developing for me. But yeah, those are the kind of past Ballon d'Or winners. I guess Simplicio is the only kind of big standout name there. Similarly, as well as the Ballon d'Or, the big mystery, wanted to know what my Dream 11 would be in the save game in terms of all the players in the world, which I feel like I would probably miss out on some players, and probably the best approach is actually to look at the Dream 11 here, although there are a few other players that I can mention for sure. So this is the Media Dream 11 for this year. Of course, there are going to be some real players in here as well as some kind of fictitious players. I will say that Massey here in goal, PSG, is not actually that good. I feel betrayed and lied. I feel like, potentially controversial opinion here, is Hamada better? I mean, his physicals are very good, actually. I've underestimated how good his physicals are. But 11 aerial reach, I would not have him in my team. Obviously, Alfredinho has been a constant thorn in our side. He's in the World 11 at right back. At centre back, a couple of real players. Upamecano, still super standout, aged 32. Eric Garcia, playing for Inter, is just the world's most complete centre back. In fact, I feel like he needs a new role invented for him of complete centre back. I guess that's kind of what a libero is. Juan Miranda is playing at left back as well for Inter. I mean, Inter, of course, we lost against in the Europa League last year. It's not been called the UEFA League or the UEFA Cup in a while, Jack. The Europa League, we lost against Inter. They've got a fair few players here, many of which are defenders. Obviously, Marchetti, we butted horns with this season against Real Madrid. He looks pretty blooming good. Camavinga in the midfield. He's only 28, everyone. He's still young. I say young. I mean, use that term loosely. I mean, I'm 27. I mean, I'm young. He's got years ahead of him, I guess is what I'm trying to say. He's very good, isn't he? He is very good. Worth noting, Mbappe and Odegaard in the midfield are obviously both quite good. Odegaard, 32 years old, just chilling out at Real Madrid. Never had the loan spell to Arsenal. Fati is in the starting 11 as well. Feels like it's quite a continentally dominated World 11 without too many English players. or English-based players at the very least. Obviously, Simplicio is going to slot in as the striker in this team. Donnarumma, Skriniar, Bastoni, Melendez, are you a regen? You are a regen. He's 23 years old. Right mid, he's very good as well. Why do so many regens have great balance or agility? That's what I want to know. Mariba's in the team. Wow, Foden, an English player. We found one, everyone. He's been just chilling in Barcelona for the past, well, almost a decade. Look at those numbers for Philly Foden. I mean, if I can have a player start putting in those numbers, I'll be very happy. And then Perilla, who, of course, we actually met when we played against Benfica. As I said, not many Premier League players in there, so allow me to compensate by showing you some of the Premier League kind of key players for the big clubs. Obviously, Osvaldo Largo is the big man for Chelsea. He is an absolutely nutty centre mid who has almost perfect physicals, except he can't jump. How much did they spend on him? 7 million? That's upsetting, isn't it, when you see a player that good sign that cheap? For Manchester United, their key player is actually a Danish goalkeeper. Maybe it's a Peter Schmeichel regen. It is Jeppe Gulbrandsen, who looks very good. He looks better than the French goalkeeper we just looked at who was playing for PSG. Jeppe, you should be in the World 11. I'm going to start a campaign for you. For Man City, their key player is going to be Tarasov, who is not quite Shvetsov, but he's still pretty blooming good. He's got great important matches, great consistency. Those physicals are upsetting, aren't they? He reminds me a bit of Milinkovic-Savic, actually. Really, really good physicals, really good in the air. Obviously, he is naturally a striker. I feel like I'd play him at centre mid, but maybe I would play him as a striker. I just feel like a striker with 11 acceleration is a bit meh at the highest level. I feel like you do want a pacey forward leading the line. But either way, I feel like even without the pace, you'd still take him as a striker in your team, I think. Probably. I mean, I don't want to speak for any of you, but he does look pretty good. For Tottenham, they've got this guy, Mortellaro, who is actually not that good. I mean, he's good. Okay, he's got 20. He is good. He is, okay. He's good. He's not like, oh my god, he's the best player ever good. I feel like Tottenham are the team that if I was looking at the top four, I'm thinking, which team can we finish beyond? They'd be the team I'd be targeting. Of course, Wolves have been a bit of a force in this save game. They finished 5th last year. They finished 6th this year. Their key player is still Danny Dyer, the English goalkeeper, and he probably is the best goalkeeper in the world. Would I sign him? I'd be tempted to. Actually did have him scouted at one point. I think he did have injury proneness as an issue. But, I mean, I think you can look beyond that when a goalkeeper's as good as this. Yeah, they've got some really good players, actually, Wolves. They've got a Butler as well, who's an English centre-back who looks really, really solid. He's got 18 caps for the national team. He's super consistent. Looking at it, a bit unsettled. That could be a transfer to go in for, although I don't think he's actually better than Piotr or Silva. Maybe I'm kidding myself there. The last thing we'll look at just real quick is Arsenal. Their key player is a Romanian centre-mid. It is Mihai Dragos, who is an insane playmaker, who's not got the craziest physicals. He's not the best defensively, not the most nutty mentals, although he's kind of got mentals in the areas you want them. I mean, as far as deep line playmakers go, he's a very good deep line playmaker, everyone. He's pretty blooming good. Anyway, a question that I got asked is about my current hot prospect. We've talked about all the other key players. By the way, our key player is Erk, just for a bit of comparison. But Benavides, hot prospect, a player who you might remember, you might not. We signed him at the start of this year for 7.5 million. He's naturally a centre-back, but I originally signed him to be the long-term replacement for Regina. Obviously, that plan kind of went out the window a little bit when Regina got sold. But still, at 18 years old, he's got really good potential. He obviously is super young, naturally a centre-back. But as far as right wing-backs go, whilst there are a couple of gaps in his game, I feel like he could be a really, really special player in this area. I don't really want to loan him out right now because I'm still trying to train him as a wing-back. The last thing I want to do with Benavides is loan him out, he plays centre-back for a year, and all the work that we've done during this season, trying to get him to play right-back, kind of goes out the window. But he is a really, really good player for us. I realised that I've kind of, because obviously I got asked about the hot prospect by RTB, but also Shidderback asked about the youth team. I have talked a little bit about the youth team already, some of the big kind of standout players who I think come through. Huttinen is worth a mention. He is a Finnish centre-back. He actually got the SPFL Young Player of the Year. So he's had a really, really good year playing in Scotland. He's been a super consistent player, 7.33 average rating in the Scottish Premiership. He's a weird one because I don't know how much potential he's got left to fulfill. And part of me wonders, maybe I should try and sell him whilst his stock is high. But make no mistake, he's a really good ball-playing defender. What I would say is he's not the best physically, he's not the best mentally. But if you wanted kind of a super talented ball-playing defender, he's definitely up there. And he has also got 19 jumping reach. So he's a bit of a rare specimen because he's an absolute giant of a centre-back who also has 16 technique. But he's a player worth having on your radar. Obviously, Ferguson, I talk about this guy a lot. I still don't quite know where Ferguson fits into the plans. I feel like as a backup striker, he could do a job for us. Obviously, we are going to have homegrown quotas and non-foreign quotas to fulfill in the coming years, which might be a little bit of a struggle just because I've signed a lot of players from outside of the UK and Ireland. So players like Cameron Ferguson here, who of course is Scottish, they do hold a little bit of extra value for us. Of course, Casanova we signed, he's been on loan at Porto this year, playing left back for them. I have now already agreed to extend his loan for another year, so I think that's a good move for him. Obviously, he's been breaking into the Uruguay national team. He's a good left back, few question marks over his potential, but he's had a really, really good loan at Porto, getting more first team football than he'll ever get with me. It just feels like it makes a lot of sense to give him that opportunity to continue to flourish. Besides that, if there was like one super standout young player that I was going to be really, really hyped for, I think it would be Ronaldo Ramirez, who I will be honest this year has disappointed me a little bit. I'm hopeful that he's going to be able to find his groove. I think I might need to find him alone going into this year. But at 19 years old, just a terrific ball-playing centre-back, 18 passing, 12 vision, he even has 7 flair, everyone. Bit confusing how his best physical attribute as a centre-back is his balance. Obviously, he can also play centre-mid. I don't know if I'd ever play him at centre-mid. It just feels like he's a bit wasted. He could be a ball-winning midfielder down the line, to be fair, which, as I've mentioned, is an area of the pitch I would like to resolve. But I don't know. I feel like ball-playing centre-back is probably the future for him. I mean, when you look at it like this, there are not many areas of his game he's lacking in. I just need to hopefully spur on his development a little bit. It'd be fair to say he has stagnated a little bit just playing in our reserves this year. Anyway, 2 more things I want to talk about real quick are training and scouting. Someone asked about my training setup. In fact, a few people asked about the training setup. So I do not do team training. I will do it based off my team's kind of actual training stuff or my team's tactics. I'm completely aware you can micromanage your team training and probably I could optimize it a little bit. But ultimately, I don't feel like I'm ever massively hamstrung or the development of my players is held back by the team training. For me personally, it's all about individual training, kind of sorting out players to do what I want them to do, getting them to learn or forget certain player preferred moves. As you can see by the training ratings, all the players on an individual level are performing well. Of course, with it being towards the end of the year and with me having rested players a lot, there hasn't actually been that much development as of late. But yeah, generally, I will take control of individual training. I feel like there's a lot that can be gained there. I have done some videos covering that already this year. But when it comes to team trainings, I just kind of leave it be. I feel like the beauty of Football Manager is you can play the game in as much or as little detail as possible. So I know for some people, they won't do their scouting assignments. I do like to do my scouting assignments. I don't do anything too crazy with them. I just have ongoing assignments where I'm looking for players with high potential in just about every continent. So if we go here, you can see here, these players have all been scouted actually a while ago. I guess they're from the previous assignment, but obviously not really finding anyone in Asia. If we go to Sanguine, have you found anyone in the UK and Ireland? You have. You found Jack Newton, who's a 16-year-old player playing for Arsenal. But yeah, these are how I have the assignment set up. It's nothing too crazy. I think I can actually edit the assignment here. So I will select a scope. Usually this will be a continent. Sometimes I'll be a bit more precise and pick a region. Or in this instance where I'm managing in England, I might set the scope for 1 or 2 of the scouts to just exclusively be looking in the nation I'm managing in. We're just looking for hot prospects. It's on an ongoing basis. And yeah, the scouts will just constantly feed scout reports through as they find them. Occasionally they find absolutely nutty players. Occasionally they find ones who are kind of meh. But I feel like it's pretty good, especially with a save game in the future, to have scouts looking at players with potential, but also, as you can see here with Jeannot, he's also looking for players who are just established talents. Sometimes players fall through the net, regens come through that you don't really spot, and then suddenly you find them and think, oh my god, that guy's nuts. For example, someone like this guy, Ruben Faze, I did not know you existed. You look very, very good. Could have been a pretty good right-back replacement for Regina. Although that asking price, I say that like I couldn't have afforded that after the Regina sale. He's very good, but I don't know if Man City would even sell him, to be fair. But yeah, in terms of assignments, I'm not doing anything too crazy. Certain competitions I might scout as well, but there's not any kind of mad secret hack that I'm using by any means to find youngsters. It's kind of, lots of general ongoing scout kind of reports. And as you can see here, the scouts will spitball me players every so often, some of which actually end up looking pretty good. There's this guy who's playing for Spezia. Inconsistent. He's unhappy and wants to move. Has potential, but at 20. If only we'd found him a few years sooner. But yeah, I think that answers most of the questions that I wanted to go through today. There were some really, really precise questions or stuff that didn't really get thumbed up much that I feel like doesn't hold as much wide interest. What I would say is if I didn't answer your questions, feel free to go over to the Discord server. There is a Park to Prem spoilers channel in there. If there's anything you'd like me to show from the save game, I'm more than happy to give you an insight or answer any questions you have in that Discord text channel. Anyway, gang, that's going to wrap up this end of season video from me. A slightly longer one, a little bit of kind of, I want to say a little bit more random. There wasn't as much structure to this as I would normally do, just because I was answering stuff that you guys wanted to see. I realise now, I hadn't checked how long I've been sat recording for. It's almost 50 minutes long. Hopefully I'm able to get this video up for midday. Hopefully you've managed to get to the end of the video as well, although I do appreciate a video as long as this is quite a long one to get through. And yeah, forgive my rambling. Guys, I will be back tomorrow with the start of a new season. As I said, we will be doing a little sneak peek over on the live stream at 9 PM GMT tonight. It'd be lovely to see you guys over there. And well, that is going to be all from me today. It is me, Jack, and I will talk to you guys in a bit. I'm out.